Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's Ijoma here, and in today's video we're going to learn how to make this beautiful viral dress from Zara. I made it in pink. Yeah, I love pink. I'm in my pink season. So this is the material that we are using. This is a crepe fabric, and this particular one that I'm using is lightweight. It is not stretchy too. It is not stretching. Now we are going to do a little pattern drafting so that we can understand better, because if I do some markings on fabric directly, you may not really understand. Now the first thing is to know that front and back half length are not the same, and this dress is going to have a side dart only. So I marked my chest line, bust point. My normal half length is 16.5, the front half length is 16 and a half, my back half length is 15 inches. My front is 16 and a half, back 15 inches. So the front half length and the back half length will not be the same. Now I'm trying to divide my paper into two so that I can use one part for the front and one part for the back. And this dress does not have a half cut, like it does not have a half cut. Yes, so we are going to use only side dart for it. Now this is my full length, and I'll also get my back measurement separately. I'm done indicating my front measurement. I'll get my back half length separately. All right, so now I am ruling my lines, and after ruling the lines I'll start labeling. Now, after ruling the front lines, I'll get my back measurement. Of course, the front and back chest line, they are the same, 8 inches. Then at the back, my half length is 1.5 inch shorter than the front. That is 15 inches, right? If you measure it from the shoulder, it is 15, but the front is 16 and a half. So the difference between my front and my back half length is 1.5. So that 1.5 is what I will use for my side dart. So if your own difference is 2, that 2 inches is what you will use for your side dart. Okay. Now my hip line is also 1.5 inch shorter than the front hip line. The back full length is also 1.5 inch shorter than the front full length. So after that, you are going to label the lines. These are the chest line for the front and the back. This is bust point for the front, half length for the front, half length for the back, hip line for the front, hip line for the back, then full length for the front and full length for the back. You can see that the back is 1.5 inch shorter than the front full length. By the time we pick our bust dart, everything will balance. So now I'm going to divide this paper into two. I'll keep the front paper and the back paper. So I'll draft on the front first of all before we move ahead to draft the back. And the drafting is really easy. Now, if you're making this dress, one thing you should have in mind is that the length is really short. It is really, really short, and that is the beauty of the dress. If it is too long, you will not have the fits you want. So now I want to use 34 inches for my own length. Even the 34 is long. If you want to have a fine shape for this dress, it will be short. It will be on your hip, like the ruffles will be on your hip, so that it will bounce when you are walking. Now, if your shoulder is 15, reduce it to 14. So my own is 15 inches. I reduce it to 14. So my shoulder is 7 inches. Then the neck width is 4.5 and the neck depth is 3 inches. Neck width 4.5. This is a boat neck. Some people call it canoe or boat neckline. Yeah, so the neck width should be 4.5, neck depth 3 inches for the front. Then your shoulder should be 1 inch shorter than your normal shoulder. If your normal shoulder is 15, reduce it to 14. If it is 16, reduce it to 15. Like your shoulder should be smaller than your normal shoulder, should be 1 inch shorter than your normal shoulder. Okay, now I use just half an inch for the shoulder slope. At the bust, you divide your bust by 4 and you mark. At the half length, you divide your waist by 4 and you mark. At the hip length, you divide your hip by 4 and you mark. Then take it straight down to the full length and connect. Now I am done. The next thing that I'm going to do right now is to find my nipple to nipple, and then I will come down by 1.5 from my bust point line, and that is my side dart. Okay, so the side dart is the difference between your front half length and your back half length. My front half length is 16.5, back is 15. So the difference is 1.5. That is what I use for my side dart. So that is what you will use for your side dart. If your own difference is 2 inches, you use 2 inches for your side dart. We are done with the front and over to the back. At the back, I will first of all mark out 1.5 for my zipper allowance and fold it in. We are using 1.5 for our zipper allowance, and after connecting the line for the zipper allowance, I will fold it in so that it will leave our face. I'll label it zipper allowance and fold it inward so that we will not make any mistake. So this is our zipper allowance and I'll fold it in. Now remember that our neck width is 4.5, so the width of this neckline will also be 4.5. The back width of the neckline will be 4.5 so that it will spread very well. The neckline is a canoe or boat neckline. Now after doing that, the neck depth, the back of this dress has this deep square neckline. Okay, so after marking 4.5 for the neck width, you come down by like, let's say 11-13 inches. It depends on how deep you want your own neckline to be. So for me, I came down by 12 inches. Yes, I came down by 12 inches, and I will connect it. The line will not be too straight, it will come inward a little and then give it the rectangular neckline, and also add half an inch for your shoulder slope. Now for the back of this dress, I don't want to add any darts. Yes, once I am done with my side dart, I don't want to add any darts at the back, but if you want, you can add darts to your back, but I am not adding any darts to my back. After that, divide your bust by 4, your waist by 4, your hip by 4, and connect the lines. So that is the reason why I want to mark this on paper, so that we can understand the difference between front and back half length. It is very important when making this particular dress, so that the back will not be gapping and you also not have any zipper bulge at your back. So now we'll start cutting on our fabric, and when cutting on our fabric, you add 1 inch allowance on the side seam and on the hemline. Then around the neckline and the armhole, you add half an inch. Okay, so you can see the paper we have drafted already. We will start transferring to our fabric. So this is the fabric that I will use, and I will cut out on my fabric. Now I am done cutting out on my fabric. The next thing that I'm going to do is to cut out facing. Facing is just the best for this. If you can use bias, but bias will give you this tacky look, so go with facing. So this is my back piece, and the facing that I'm cutting will cover both the neckline and the armhole. So you can see where it stopped at. The facing stopped about 3 inches below that neckline, and it also covered the armhole. So the facing you are cutting should turn your armhole and your neckline at the same time. So this is for the back. I will also cut out for the front. So The front facing will also cover both the neckline and the armhole. Yes, your facing should turn your neckline and your armhole at the same time. So now I'll go ahead and fold the fabric that will be enough to cover both the armhole and the neckline. After folding that, I'll place my fabric on top. We are no longer working with our paper now. So I'll go ahead and cut and make sure that this facing is about 4 inches below your armhole line or 3 inches below your armhole line at least. Then you also cut out your neckline. After that, remove the main fabric and from the neckline come down by 3.5 and curve it like this so that your bust area can relax, so that this facing will not be too much on your top. You can see how I curved my front facing. That is how you are going to curve your own. You go ahead and use it to turn your neckline and your armhole. But before that, remember to sew your dart. You will go ahead and fix your dart before you turn your neckline and your armhole. Always notch your armhole before you turn. So these are the back pieces. I'll also go ahead and arrange my facing on top, and I'll go and turn the neckline and the armhole. Now, the next thing that we are cutting is the ruffle part. So this is bubble. They call it bubble ruffles. Okay, so now when I was cutting that dress, I cut out the full length of the dress. This bubble, they did not fix it at the hem. They fixed it somewhere around the hip of that dress. They did not fix this bubble at the hem of the dress. So multiply your hip times 2. That is what we use for the length, like for the gather. So if your hip is 40, you will need 80 inches long. If your hip is 50, you will need 125 inches long. But for me, I did not make it up to times 2. I just used 60 inches because I'm managing this fabric. Now, the length of that bubble on fold is 7 inches. Like the length of each bubble, the length of each ruffle is 7 inches on fold. So 7 inches, if you open 7 inches, it will be 14. So multiply the length of each bubble. Each, like those bubbles, those 4 ruffles you are seeing, the length of each of them on fold is 7. So if you open it, it is 14. So what you're going to do is 14 times 3 because you're doing 3 steps of bubble. So do 14 times 3. So 14 times 3 gave me 42. And then I'll go ahead and cut out 42. So the fabric that I'm using now is 60 by 42. 60 is the full length of this fabric, and that is what I'm using for my gathers. Then the bubble, each of them is 14 inches. Each of them is 14 times 3, that is 42. That's why I'm using 60 by 42. 60 by 42. So I'm marking out 14 inches. After cutting out that fabric, just go ahead and mark 14 inches. Like divide your fabric into 3 equal parts. Divide the fabric that you want to use for this ruffle into 3 equal parts. I'm still marking 14 inches from the first line that I marked. I marked another 14 inches, so that I will divide the fabric into 3 equal parts because we are doing 3 steps of ruffle. Okay, one step of that ruffle is 7 inches on fold. So if it is flat, it will be 14. Okay, but on fold is 7. So that's why I'm marking 14 inches for each step. Now, after marking straight line, you go ahead and mark curvy lines the way I'm marking. I see the way I'm marking wavy lines. That is what you are going to do. Go ahead and mark wavy lines on the 2 lines at the middle. These 2 lines, you are going to mark wavy lines. So these wavy lines that I marked now, instead of making straight gathers, I will make wavy gathers. This is the line that we sew on. So if I'm going to my sewing machine, I am going to sew on the wavy lines. You will run 2 gather stitches, 2 loose gather stitches on the wavy line. Then at the edge, at the outside, you will run straight lines. So at the outside, straight lines. On these lines that I marked wavy lines, you will also mark wavy lines, so that if we are doing our gathers, we'll be having this bubble type of gather. It is not just straight gathers. Okay, so after dividing your fabric into 3 parts, at the 2 middle lines, mark wavy lines. That is the lines you are going to sew on. So now this is the main dress. I am done turning the neckline and the armhole, and this is what I have. It is really looking neat. Please, try your best to avoid bias. Okay, so these are the back pieces. You can see the necklines and the armhole. I am done turning the two of them also. So right now I'll go ahead and close the zipper allowance area. I like closing my zipper allowance before taking my body measurements, so I'll go ahead and close the zipper allowance before taking my body measurement. So now I'll close the zipper allowance and keep it aside. Now we are back to our bubble, our ruffle. You can see I ran wavy lines on those curved lines that I marked. I ran my gather stitches on that, so I'll start gathering. So my hip is 42 inches. If I'm making these gathers, I'll make sure that it is 42 inches. Like if I gather small, I'll measure to make sure that it will go round my hip. Okay, so on, you can see the gather is not straight, it is wavy gather. So just use your hand and arrange the gathers. And the wavy lines, I ran the wavy lines on just the two middle lines, but at the edge of this fabric I ran straight gather stitches. At the edges, like at the edges, at the outside, I ran straight gather stitches. The only place I did this curvy gather is on the two middle lines. Okay, so after gathering the two middle lines, I'll also gather the outside, the edge of this fabric here, the outer part of the fabric. And as you are gathering, keep measuring it to make sure that it will go around your hip. Okay, yes, I'll measure, it will go around my hip. I have 42 inches. So I'm done gathering the two middle lines. I will start gathering the edge, the ones on the outside. I also ran gather stitches, but that one is just straight gather. So you can see how I am gathering it. Yes, so just take your time and gather. And as you are gathering, you'll be measuring them to make sure, please make sure that the gather will be enough to go around your hip. Okay, so yes, I'm trying to measure to make sure it will go around my hip. Yeah, that one is 42 inches now. And I'll move over to the other edge. It is 42 inches now. I'll move over to this edge and I'll start gathering this part too. So if you count, we have 4 areas that we gathered, 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, that is what you should have if you are doing 3 steps. Yes. Okay, so now after making these gathers, we are going to sew them now, but I'll show you how to sew this in order to get that bubble effect. So what you are going to do is to turn this fabric to the wrong side, like to the side that you marked those wavy lines, so that you'll be sure. Okay, so now I'll measure and I have enough already. I have 42 inches on this part, so all of them now are equal, 42 inches. So now I will turn this fabric to the wrong side. This is the wrong side, and I will pick the number 1 line. I'll pick number 2 line and join it to number 1. Number 1 line will be the base, so pick number 2 and join to number 1 line. The first line, you will pick the second line and join it together with the number 1 line. Okay, so after pinning, I'll pick the number 3 and join it to number 1. Like, I'll keep picking all these gathers. I'll keep pushing them towards the number 1 so that all of them will meet at a place. Then this is number 3 gather, right? Number 3 line. I will pick it and force it to reach that number 1 line. So pick all of them and make sure that they meet the other edge of that gathers. You can see what I'm doing right here. So I'm trying to like pin everything before I go to my sewing machine. So now I've picked number 2 and shifted it to number 1 line. I've picked number 3 and I'm pinning it to number 1 line again. After doing that, I'll pick this last one. This one now, this gathered area, I'll pick it and move it to number 1 so that all of them will meet, all those gathered lines will meet each other and you will sew. Okay, yeah, so just follow it gradually. So I'm done pinning that. I'll pick this last one and force it to meet number 1 too. So you can see we have achieved that ruffle, that bubble effect. And the spiral line we used to make that gather also helped us to achieve this bubble effect. Because had it is just straight, you will not get that bubble effect like that. They will just have straight gathers. They will just look normal. But the way we did it now will help you to have that bubble effect, and all the three steps will meet each other. We just have one joining where all the three steps met. Okay, so right now I'll go to my sewing machine and I'll run a stitch to hold all of them together, and I'll also do the same thing on the sides to hold all the three sides together. So now we are done, and this is our back. We're going to shape the main gown. So after shaping the main gown, we will now attach the ruffles to it. So I will insert the back shoulder inside, in between the main fabric of the front and the lining of the front. So we use it to turn it in order to give it a fine finishing. So after doing that, I'll take the other shoulder of the back, make sure that the fabric is facing each other, right side to right side, and then use the lining of the front, use the facing of the front to turn it so that nobody will see where you stitched it from at the shoulder. Okay, so after doing that, you go ahead and take your body measurements and you will shape your gown. After shaping the gown, you will hem the gown and then come back for the ruffles. Now we are done shaping and hemming the gown. We have folded the full length of that gown. This gown is looking short, but it is even long to compare to how short the inspiration of this dress is. So now we are done, and this dress has the normal full length, like the normal full length. Like I said, the bubble was not joined at the hem, it was joined around the hip area. So now I couldn't iron it because of light issues. This is my ruffles, my bubble ruffles. Once you join it, you can see what you have. Yeah, it is looking nice already. So what we are going to do right now is to mark our hip line. This is our hip line. You will just go ahead and mark a straight line along your hip line, because that is where these ruffles will enter. And you also make sure that this your ruffles is the same length with the gown, or is even longer than the gown. Okay, but it should be the same length with the gown, because from the hip to the full length is 7 inches and the length of this is 7 inches too. So close the back, go ahead and close this ruffles or the bubble, and then you go ahead and sew it. If you turn it up, you sew it and then it will face downwards. That is it. So after closing the center back of that ruffle or the bubble, you will come back and join it. So now we are done joining, and this is what you have. The back is looking plain because I didn't do this ruffle with enough fabric. Like I said, if you want your ruffles to be big, you will do your hip times 2. Like if your hip is 40, you will do times 2. That is 80 inches long fabric. My hip is 42, so it was supposed to be 84 inches long fabric, but I used just 60 inches long fabric. Okay, so that is the reason why the gathers is not so full. But if you want your gathers to be very full, you should do your hip times 2. Your hip times 2 will give you a full and bubble effect, like a full gather, and the full gather will also give you a nice bubble effect. So right now I am doing a little tacking so that the back will not look so plain. Yes, after the tacking, you go ahead and add your zipper, and that will be the end of the tutorial.